So this is, in fact, the dashboard. We spent a tremendous amount of energy and resources and investments bringing this technology to our clients. This is, in fact, V3, and the platform has been around for 5 years. And just a little bit of background on it. This is 100% built on Salesforce.com. We leverage CRMA, which is also known as Tableau, and we're doing a tremendous amount of data analytics and calculations in the background. So kind of starting in the top left-hand corner, the vulnerabilities, that 60,000 is indicating the open critical vulnerabilities, not the total number of vulnerabilities, because we all know some vulnerabilities are low risk, others are very high risk. So in this case, you are seeing about 60,000 vulnerabilities. It's also telling you how well either Black Talon has resolved the critical vulnerabilities, or if you opt to address this yourself, how many vulnerabilities your network defenders have addressed. In this case, about 10,300 vulnerabilities. And unfortunately, how many new critical vulnerabilities appear in your environment, because this is a cat and mouse game. Your team or Black Talon does a great job at mitigating these vulnerabilities, and boom, the next scans hit, and guess what? There's a whole bunch of new vulnerabilities. Your cyber risk rating, right? This is one of the most powerful components of what we do. If you have multiple departments, or you have multiple locations, or you have a hospital and you have physicians' offices kind of spread out around your communities, you can break all of this data down to, your ER, to your first floor, to your second floor, OR, etc., and look at the cyber risk ratings for each of those locations, or you can look at them globally for your organization. So each of those areas could get a unique cyber rating, and then it rolls up to your overall org. So in this case, we score 11 for this organization, or I should say this organization scores an 11. Our risk rating goes from 1 to 100. The lower the number, the less risk you have. The higher the number, the higher risk. And it is calculating a lot of pieces of telemetry. What's the risk of the vulnerability? How long has it been in your environment? Is it internet facing? Is it known exploitable? Is it an open port? You get the idea. All right. So that is an evolving number. In the right-hand corner, if you are leveraging SentinelOne with us, we will track the number of threats we detect, stop, kill, network quarantine, all the fun terms in the cyberspace, so you'll have true visibility over time on that. In the middle, that is going to be your cybersecurity risk rating over time. So you can kind of see, how am I doing? Like, is my cyber risk increasing month over month? Is it decreasing? Is it ebbing and flowing, which is often normal? And how do I compare to other healthcare organizations? So that other line, you see kind of that solid pink line, that's you. That dotted line right above it, that is going to be the benchmarking from 2,000 other healthcare organizations. So in this case, this is all real data, by the way. We just anonymized it. This healthcare organization is basically following the trend of 2,000 other healthcare organizations. Okay. Moving down to the gauges, external devices with vulnerabilities. Depending on the size of your hospital, you might have 1, 2 firewalls. You could have hundreds. So what we're doing is we are showing you that 3% of your external facing assets have some type of vulnerability. In this case, this is a large healthcare organization with almost 900 external facing devices, 899 to be exact. How many actual vulnerabilities do you have across those 899 devices? In this case, there are 68. What's your external exposure? Right. So do I have exposed services? Do I have open ports? Well, in this case, yeah, you do. You have 131. So this is actually being pulled daily. And the reason we do this is because we often, through forensics, see a correlation between a port being open or a vulnerability on the firewall and a cyber event. Hackers can scan the internet, obviously millions of times every day. Or millions of devices every day, I should say. Sorry, reverse that. And if you have these open or exposures on your firewall, your internet-facing devices, they will find them, right? I see a lot of ransomware attacks where there was a firewall that wasn't patched properly. These open ports, exposed services. security through obscurity, the hackers will find all of them. The Black Talon Academy, if you opt to leverage our training platform for HIPAA and cybersecurity awareness, the data will be presented right there. Asset inventory. This is another powerful feature. It gives you the ability to see every single asset. Now, we are strictly talking endpoints for full disclosure. So Windows, Mac, Linux, Unix computer. This is not going to be an IoT device like a smart TV or a printer. That is a separate report that you would get from us if you leverage us for that. So what it's showing us is, how many endpoints we are tracking. So for this healthcare org, we are tracking 4,564. It is not a secret. We leverage Qualys as our authenticated vulnerability agent that sits on every single endpoint. In this case, between SentinelOne and CrowdStrike, I misspoke. SentinelOne and Qualys, you can get a very good indicator as to how many agents are deployed on each of those devices. Also understand that sometimes the numbers may be a little off because endpoints are turned off for whatever reason. They're being decommissioned, and sometimes that data takes a day or up to a month to repopulate the number, right? Because if an endpoint doesn't check in, within 24 hours, we're not going to pull them out of asset inventory. We're going to wait over a period of time to see, hey, maybe that's just been decommissioned and the IT resources forgot to pull it out. Then you have the endpoint name. The account name can also be associated with like a physical location, facility, building. And then what's their cyber risk score, which is really kind of like an exposure score. And then the severity of the vulnerability. We score our vulnerabilities on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low risk, 5 being high. And then we give you some information. What's the Qualys version? What's the SentinelOne version? What's the OS on that endpoint? So a tremendous amount of really powerful data right at your fingertips. And in the top left is just taking a look at your exposure score over time, right? There's a little pop from October to November, some slight trending upward in February, some downward trending, a tiny bit of upward trending. So the typical ebb and flow of the cyber world. Well, what are we looking at now? What we're looking at now is internal vulnerabilities, right? So with internal vulnerabilities, we are going to grab your vulnerability data every 4 hours. And that data is available to all of our network defenders internal to Black Talon. And then we're typically exposing this data back to you either daily, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. That is an option that you would be able to select on your onboarding in terms of how often you want your data refreshed. You can also, let's just say you opt for monthly data refreshes of all your internal vulnerabilities, and your network defenders just spent the whole night crushing vulnerabilities and you want an updated report. You just click on update internal vulnerabilities, and within a couple hours, you'll have a full refresh of your data set. So what you're looking at here now is basically every single known and detected vulnerability in your environment. We offer extremely powerful filtering and searching capabilities. So you want to search by vulnerability or cyber risk exposure score, how many endpoints are impacted. You get the idea. You'd be able to filter that down to the point where, like, hey, if you have 1,000 computers, you may be able to instantly find the 5 machines that have that risk. But I'm also going to show you another way of doing that. So if you want to take a look at vulnerability details, in this case, I clicked on the prior screen, the end of life obsolete software, Microsoft.NET version 6 detected. When I click on that, boom, it returns a list of every single endpoint that has that known vulnerability. So if your network defenders are needing to address this vulnerability, they instantly know which endpoints are impacted and can drive the patch or the remediation directly to the impacted machines. The next is the details on the vulnerability. So what happens a lot of times is these vulnerability scans tell you have a problem, and they may not often provide a good solution. So the second your network defender clicks on that little eye with a circle in the top left-hand corner here, right? The second they click on that, the the pop-up box will appear in the top right-hand corner, and it's going to show you what the solution is, what the impact is, and what the threat is. And what that does is that significantly reduces the amount of time and energy your network defenders have to invest to address the cyber risk. All right, so now we're into threats. As I alluded to before, if you are leveraging SentinelOne with us, we give you full transparency into what we're detecting, what we're stopping, average time to mitigate, was it marked benign, things like that. So really powerful data. And the other nice thing is you can start looking at this data by machine, by physical location, by operating system type, right? So you can start identifying things in your environment that are causing most of the problems. We know for a fact that sometimes either users or an endpoint have a higher frequency of malicious code for various reasons, right? Because someone is constantly doing just bad things on that endpoint, trying to install software, download things, visiting bad websites. So this gives you very clear visibility into some of those behaviors as well. This is your threat details. So if you click on something that we killed or marked benign, you have clear visibility into what it was, the name of the threat, the device that it was on, the path of the malware that we killed, etc. Right. So once again, transparency between all parties is so important. All right, this is external vulnerabilities. So if I said to you now, could you identify every single external vulnerability across your environment? Hopefully the answer is yes, but what I find for most healthcare organizations and hospitals, the answer is a smile, a laugh, and I wish I could. Here's something very unique that we do. We leverage the authenticated vulnerability agent that sits on every single endpoint to feed EAGLEi the external facing IP address. So whether that's in a hospital, at one of the physician's offices, or Mary from revenue cycle management sitting at her home logging in, we will grab all of those IPs, feed them into EAGLEi, and then depending on your cadence, run vulnerability scans daily, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And we will run daily port scans on those IPs. So even IPs that you're not even tracking or are aware of, we are doing that for you, right? It goes back to, where is my house going to get burned down? It's going to get burned down in the areas that you have no visibility into. And I will tell you, CISOs, CTOs, CIOs, right? They love this, right? This is one of the most powerful features because we're giving them a picture into their risk that they absolutely didn't have prior to this, right? So here are all of your external facing vulnerabilities. You can look at these by severity rating, by score, the number of detections that we're finding across your environment. And then you can also look at it by physical location, right? Or facility. And then obviously, like anything else, you have graphing and KPIs and data, and how do these vulnerabilities impact your overall cyber risk rating. So all of that data is right in front of you at your fingertips. And if you're not sure of the first vulnerability, your secure socket layer, transport layer issue, you hit that little eye with a circle to the right of that. It's going to tell you exactly what the problem is. This is external services. So these are typically exposed services. It could be an open port. Unfortunately, what we're seeing all too often is someone has exposed the firewall console to the internet. And the second you do that, I think most people either know or don't know or understand the risk associated with that, but you're basically giving a threat actor a whole bunch of information in order for them to execute an attack against you. So being able to identify all of these exposed services is extremely important and very powerful, and this is gathered on a daily basis. We saw a ransomware attack against a healthcare group about 2 months ago where a very seasoned internal IT resource spun up an RDP server and somehow managed to expose RDP to the internet. And within 24 hours, that server was hit. And when I talked to the CISO, who I've actually known for years and isn't leveraging our platform, he immediately said, I know, you've warned me about this. And we had all these SOPs and we had the tier one EDR solution, and they still beat it. And he's like, I realize now I have no external attack surface management, or I've limited based on, my quarterly scan. So having this clear attack surface analysis is extremely powerful. Black Talon Academy, this is our enterprise level cybersecurity awareness training platform that most of our clients do leverage with us. It is healthcare specific. So this is not going to be general business training that you get from a lot of other platforms. It's going to talk about patients, and X-rays and MRIs and protecting patient data, and making it really relative. And the trainees, the doctors, the team members, right? They can understand it and they connect with it. Versus talking about, oh, so if your customer places an order with you or sends you this email and you're like, we don't have customers, we have patients, right? So all of this data that is gathered from our training platform, which is based off of micro training modules, all this data rolls up into EAGLEi. So as someone who's in charge of cybersecurity awareness training, whether that falls under the technical side of the house or the HR and compliance, those individuals have this data at their fingertips, so they can see how many people are enrolled, how many people have trained, how many people have started but haven't finished, and then unfortunately, who's failed, right? So you have all of that there. And also from a compliance and regulatory perspective, if you're ever audited and they're like, hey, we need to know, who's been trained in your organization. This data is all easily attainable, or attained, I should say, from this platform. So this just gives you a little bit better idea. These are the employees. Obviously, I blacked out this information, but these are the people who have trained and passed, what their scores on the exam, how much time did they spend, right? Because a lot of times executive teams will say, well, how much time is each of our employees spending on this training? And you can now tell them easily. All right, so I want to go ahead and wrap up here, and I want to see if anyone has any questions. If not, Steve, love to hear if you have any feedback or thoughts.
How long does it, if somebody's interested, how long does it take to get started with Black Talon?
Yeah. So we can provide the installation tools within about 24 hours. In this case, it does have a lot to do with the size of your organization and how you want to segregate the data. If you're a smaller hospital with a relatively flat environment, you can be up and running in a couple of days. It's that simple. If you are a larger healthcare org or hospital and you want to take all this data and put it into the different buckets, by department, by facility, by physician's office or group, we would need to gather some of that data for you. And then what we actually do is we provide unique installers coded to each of those locations or facilities. So when you look at EAGLEi, the data is coming in correctly, and you'll be able to see like location 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or OR, waiting room, ER, first floor, second floor, third floor, whatever it is. Once the agents are deployed, we will typically have a full attack surface picture of your internal endpoints as well as your external facing environment within about 48 hours, sometimes less. So the data does come in very, very quickly. So it's a very simple deployment. Any type of RMM tool or software deployment tool can be used to push our agents.
Okay, great. What kind of information, Gary, do customers need to provide to us to get a better understanding of what the costs would be? I mean, do they just need to kind of tell you, like you just said, if you've got a small, flat organization, do they just need to give you, number of workstations that we're going to monitor? Or maybe you can discuss that a little bit.
It's actually pretty much that simple, Steve. Most of what we do is by endpoint. So we also understand that hospitals do have some of their own technology that may be overlapping with us. So we can do a la carte. So, for argument's sake, if you're just looking for attack surface management and vulnerability management, you could buy that. We need to know the number of endpoints. If you want to leverage the attack surface plus autonomous remediation, no problem. We can add that feature on with the flip of a switch. If you want us to become your MDR shop for SentinelOne, we can do that too. So I think it really starts with a scoping call, and kind of understanding what the goals are of the hospital or the healthcare organization, getting a picture of what the environment looks like in terms of topography, network topography, and size, and then we'd be able to scope it out pretty easily. So,
Gary, thank you very, very much.
you're very welcome. Thanks, Steve, as always.
Have a great day, everyone.